can't find nothing on the radio.
You ready, Steve?
Welcome to Songology. He's Bruce,
He's Richard.
and this is another episode from our Song of the Day archives.
Enjoy.
You're traveling through another dimension, a dimension of sound and of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination and questionable taste. Your next stop, the Audio Twilight Zone.
Well, we're in the Audio Twilight Zone, and it's April 1st. Should I be nervous?
Oh, don't be nervous at all. It's just, I thought, appropriate to take a little diversion from our playing around with Mellotrons in honor of April 1st and go in a little different direction. Now, you may remember that in our only other trip into this particular zone, we had the very odd and ill-advised Telly Savalas cover version of If. And I thought that it would be a good idea to point out that there are other things in the Audio Twilight Zone, apart from ill-advised cover versions, and apart even from novelty songs, because weird is not necessarily bad. Now, having said that, Stephen Hawking.
Uh-huh.
You know Stephen Hawking,
Yes.
right? Internationally famous astrophysicist.
Yes.
Did you know that Stephen Hawking has a hit rock record?
I had no idea.
Well, it's perhaps not quite correct to call it his hit rock record, but Stephen Hawking appears on a hit rock and roll record.
Okay.
Back in 1994, Stephen Hawking appeared on Pink Floyd's song Keep Talking. Now, this was a song that comes from the album The Division Bell, which is the second Pink Floyd album after the departure of Roger Waters. There was someday when because there's lots more really good Pink Floyd music that I would like to feature here and there, but we'll get into all the nuts and bolts of what happened with Pink Floyd. But suffice to say that the end of Roger Waters' time with the band was really, really acrimonious. When he left, he declared that Pink Floyd was finished, and David Gilmour and Nick Mason particularly said, well, wait a minute, we're Pink Floyd too, and maybe we want to continue. And so Roger tried to sue them to stop them using the name, and then tried to sabotage some of their early touring efforts. It was just really quite nasty. In fact, in a relatively recent interview, in a very offhand way, Nick Mason described the state of mind of the band after Roger Waters left as like being in the Soviet Union after Stalin died. Now, just pause for a moment and think about that. Man, that says a lot.
Yeah.
That is not good. And they had a very, very complicated history. I mean, the original founder of the band, Sid Barrett, had essentially melted his brain on LSD and lost his mind, which was rather tragic. Then they worked through a lot of different issues, and we'll come to all of that. But this song, Keep Talking, is part of the Division Bell. The message of it really is about communication, the importance of communication. In fact, many people, including me, thought that there was a lot on this record that was about their breakup with Roger Waters and the fact that there was all this nastiness and acrimony and they couldn't even communicate anymore. Actually, David Gilmour says no. He says that any theme is entirely coincidental. It just happened to work out that way. So basically, the band got back together. They spent a bunch of time in the studio doing some jamming, working out some different melodies and so forth, some stuff that they liked. And then they chose the pieces that they wanted to work up into songs. Well, it was around about that time that David Gilmour, guitarist, right, he's sitting around in his house one evening, and he sees for the first time an ad on his TV for British Telecom. And the ad featured the voice of Stephen Hawking, talking about the importance of communication, not only just generally, but the importance of communication to civilization and how really it changed the way that we as human beings lived, because we were suddenly able to communicate with each other, express complex ideas, and essentially stop living like the animals. And Gilmour says that he found the message of that TV ad so moving. He said he started to cry. He said, this is the most powerful piece of advertising I'd ever seen. And he was fascinated with the idea of this communication and the idea also that of all people that was getting this out, it was Stephen Hawking who had such difficulty himself communicating. So he gets a hold of the people who run the ad, British Telecom, and says, can I borrow the voice track? Can I get a hold of that? And they said, sure. He then spent months fiddling with it, finding the right piece of music that they had for it, and with the help of Rick Wright, the keyboard player, and Gilmore's significant other lady by the name of Polly Sampson, what they came up with is the song that I have for you today. Now, of course, Stephen Hawking himself, famous astrophysicist, author of the international bestseller, A Brief History of Time, and most people are aware that he's confined to a wheelchair. He suffers from ALS. He's one of the rare people that has not died from it. I mean, the vast majority of people who suffer from that condition don't make it beyond the first few years. But in certain rare cases, and Hawking happens to be one of them, the condition stabilizes, and so they can live, albeit very restricted lives.
A few years ago, Stephen Hawking had the chance to go up in the zero-G aircraft. As the parabolic flights, there was a full medical crew following him there because they were quite worried how will his body react to doing this. And they had strict instructions there. They would try one, and if anything was negative, they'd land. Well,
now this is the aircraft that flies in the parabolic arc, and you become weightless.
Yes, as it goes through the top of the arc, you become weightless for a few seconds, and then gravity presses. Well,
this is the one that is nicknamed the Vomit Comet.
That's the very one.
There you go. Okay.
And
so what happened?
He was up there, and the pilot said the only reason they landed was they're getting low on fuel. Stephen Hawking was having such a great time.
That's cool.
He absolutely loved it, to experience that sort of freedom in so many years. So,
well, particularly for him, yeah.
Yes,
of people.
So that was a great time, and he's hoping Virgin Galactic gets things going because he has his ticket to go up there.
And who better?
Indeed.
He communicates through a voice synthesizer, which I believe is actually controlled just through eye movements. And so basically that's all he can move, and he has to spell out the words on a special keyboard that then the computer then speaks for him. Now, in recent years, Hawking has become a bit of an entertainment celebrity. He's appeared on an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, and he's made a number of appearances on the sitcom The Big Bang Theory. Now, one thing, though, about his TV appearances is it creates the illusion that having communication with Stephen Hawking is instantaneous. It's like the conversation you and I are having now. But in actual fact, it's a very laborious process because it might take him several minutes to type out a reply. Now, you may also know that Hawking was the subject of a recent biographical film.
Yes.
Right? The Theory of Everything?
Yes.
Eddie Redmayne, the actor, I believe, if I paying attention to these things correctly, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor for that. I saw him interviewed not long ago, though, and he said that in preparation for that role, he had the opportunity to meet Stephen Hawking, and he was really, really excited and at the same time very humbled to do that, but he was really, really nervous when he got together to meet Stephen Hawking. And so he said, because of his nervous nature and because of the fact that there are these long pauses of silence till Stephen Hawking is able to respond to anything, Redmayne finds himself wanting to fill these pauses. And so because he's done all his research, he says, I find myself spouting bits of facts about Stephen Hawking's life to Stephen Hawking. And he says at one point, he said that, gee, I happen to know that you were born on such and such a day. And gee, I was born, just the week before. So we're both Capricorns. And then there's the usual pause. And Hawking replies, I'm an astronomer, not an astrologer. So a couple more notes on this song. At the end of the song, particularly the last guitar chord is very distinctive. You get to hear the talk box effect. So that is a particular effect that applies to electric guitars. And I've got some stuff worked up on that we'll get to at a future date. But it's basically something that, in a way, makes the guitar sound like it's speaking. And David Gilmour, when talking about the song, he said, and with a bit of a laugh, he says, really this is more of a wish that all problems can be solved through discussion than a belief. So it's more in the nature of hopeful. But whether hopeful or not, and even out of the problems that arose from a breakup as bad as Pink Floyd's, you could get some surprising things. And it is so surprising even that international astrophysicists can appear on hit records, at least in the audio Twilight Zone.
And as usual, I have to stop it right there due to the wonderful world of fair use rules. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. You can visit us on Facebook or head over to our website, songology.ca. Now, here's your chance to listen to the music or go on to the next episode.